Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. The Friday crowd poured out of downtown bars like a restless tide, laughter echoing through the streets while Logan Pierce sat alone in his truck, engine idling across from a softly lit restaurant patio. His fingers drummed against the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the woman inside. Harper, his wife of 7 years. She wasn't alone. Across from her sat Dylan Cooper, her friend from the office, the same man who conveniently needed her help with late-night project reports. Logan had believed that lie once, maybe twice. But tonight wasn't about believing. Tonight was about confirming. He'd watched her for nearly 40 minutes, noting every gesture, every touch. The playful way she leaned forward, the way Dylan's hand brushed hers across the table. Small things, but deadly enough to cut deep. She smiled in a way she hadn't smiled at Logan in months. When Dylan reached over to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, Logan's chest tightened. He wasn't the kind of man who yelled or stormed in to make a scene. Not anymore. Life had beaten that part out of him long ago. Now, he preferred silence and precision. He reached for his phone, typed a message with steady hands, and hit send. Hope the couch at your friend's place is comfortable. He didn't wait for the reply. He didn't need to. He saw it all. The flicker of panic across her face when her phone lit up, the quick glance she gave Dylan, the way she forced a smile that no longer reached her eyes. Within seconds, her hand trembled slightly as she typed something back. Then stopped, deleted it, typed again, stopped again. Logan's phone buzzed once, a missed call, then another. Then 10 more in the next 5 minutes. He didn't pick up a single one. He just sat there, letting the cold wind slip through the half-cracked window, breathing in the scent of betrayal that had been building for months. Harper hadn't always been like this. When they first met, she was 24 and fierce, a nurse with messy hair, a quick laugh, and the kind of energy that could turn a gray day bright. Logan had fallen hard. Back then, he worked construction, saving every dime to start his own company. She used to bring him sandwiches during lunch breaks, tell him she believed in him when no one else did. But success changes people. Once Logan's small renovation business began thriving, Harper wanted more. Bigger house, better cars, weekend getaways, designer clothes. And for a while, he gave her everything. He thought he was making her happy. Until Dylan from accounting entered the picture. At first, it was little things. Phone calls that ended the second he walked in, new perfume, a sudden obsession with staying late at work. Then came the distance, the disinterest, the polite smiles instead of kisses. Now, sitting in his truck, watching her laugh with another man, Logan finally understood. She wasn't tired of driving. She was tired of him. He started the engine and drove home slowly, headlights slicing through the empty streets. Inside his chest, something heavy had broken, not cleanly but jagged and cruel. Yet beneath the pain was a new calm, something darker and sharper than heartbreak. By the time he pulled into the driveway, his mind was already moving like a chessboard. He'd given her everything, loyalty, comfort, trust, and she'd gambled it away. Now, it was his turn to play, and Logan didn't plan to lose. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, sat on the couch, and opened his laptop. The house smelled faintly of her perfume, floral, sweet, haunting. He clicked open the security footage from the hidden cameras he'd installed weeks ago after noticing her late-night calls and sudden girls' weekends. There she was, Harper, 2 nights ago, letting Dylan into their living room while Logan was on a job site overnight. They laughed, kissed, and disappeared into the guest room, the one she'd insisted on redecorating. Logan leaned back in his chair, eyes cold and unblinking. Too tired to drive home, he whispered bitterly. You'll be exhausted by the time I'm done. He closed the laptop and smiled for the first time that night. Not the kind of smile built from joy, but one forged in quiet vengeance. Tomorrow, Harper would learn that her husband wasn't the fool she thought he was. Morning light spilled through the kitchen window, brushing across the half-empty coffee cup on the counter. Logan hadn't slept. He sat there in the same spot all night, the quiet hum of the fridge almost mocking him. But he wasn't broken. He was focused. Harper stumbled in around 7 a.m., sunglasses perched on her head, pretending exhaustion. Morning, she said softly, forcing a yawn. Sorry, I didn't want to drive so late. I stayed over at Emily's. You know her, the one from the hospital. Logan didn't even lift his gaze from a newspaper. Emily. Huh, he murmured, flipping a page. You mean the one who moved to Oregon 6 months ago? Her face froze, just for a heartbeat, but he caught it. That flicker of panic. That silent search for another lie. She recovered quickly, pouring coffee with trembling hands. Oh, right. I forgot you knew that. I meant, Emma. You always mix them up. Yeah, Logan said quietly. I guess I do. He looked up then, meeting her eyes for the first time. Calm. Controlled. The same way a storm feels right before it breaks. Did you sleep well? He asked casually. Her throat bobbed. Fine. He nodded, folded the newspaper neatly, and stood. Good. You're going to need a rest. We've got a big day. She frowned. A big day? For what? He smiled, polite, almost kind. You'll see. By afternoon, Logan was driving Harper across town in his black pickup, country music humming low through the speakers. She sat quietly, glancing at him every few seconds, sensing something different about him. There was no warmth, no irritation, just eerie composure. He stopped outside a sleek office building. Pierce & Company. Renovations. His company. She blinked. Why are we here? Thought we'd do lunch, he said simply, stepping out. Inside, the staff greeted him warmly, unaware of the tension that pulsed beneath the surface. Harper followed, heels clicking against the polished floors, smiling politely at the team she'd met countless times before. Logan guided her into his office, shut the door behind them, and slid a folder across the desk. What's this? She asked. He leaned against the edge of the desk, arms crossed. That, he said, is everything. Inside the folder were photographs, time-stamped screenshots from the hidden cameras, her messages to Dylan, and a credit card statement showing the hotel charge under Dylan Cooper's name. The blood drained from her face. Logan, she whispered, voice trembling. He said nothing. Please, she continued, her voice cracking. I can explain. It wasn't like that. Don't. He interrupted sharply. Don't insult me with another story. I gave you honesty. Harper. You gave me theater. Tears filled her eyes. I made a mistake. No, he cut in coldly. You made choices. She sank into the chair, shaking. It was never supposed to happen. I just felt lonely. You were always working, always tired, always distant. Dylan was just a distraction. Logan asked quietly. Something to make you feel alive again. She nodded helplessly. He stared at her for a long moment, then said, Funny. I used to blame myself for that distance. But now I see. I was building a life for both of us. And you were too busy finding comfort in someone else's arms. She cried harder, her mascara smudging, voice trembling. Please, Logan, don't end this. I still love you. He laughed once, a hollow sound that made her flinch. Love? You don't even respect the word. Then his tone softened dangerously. You see, Harper, I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to throw you out or destroy your things. That would be too easy. You taught me something valuable, patience. He reached into the desk drawer, pulled out a neatly folded paper, and handed it to her. It was a separation agreement, drafted by his lawyer weeks ago, with every asset, the house, the savings, the company shares, already protected under his name. Her eyes widened. You planned this. I prepared for it, he corrected. The day you started working late, every Friday, I started documenting. You left breadcrumbs, Harper. I just followed the trail. She broke down completely. I'll change, Logan. Please, I'll prove it. I'll quit my job. I'll do anything. He shook his head slowly. No, you'll do exactly what you wanted. You'll go be with him. But you'll do it without my name, my money, or my roof. He turned toward the window, staring out the skyline that he'd built from scratch. Every beam, every nail, every hour away from home. You threw away a man who would have walked through fire for you. I'm just letting you live with the ashes. That night, Harper packed her bags, sobbing quietly as Logan sat in silence. When she finally reached the door, she turned back, tears streaking her face. One day, you'll regret this, she whispered. Logan looked at her with calm finality. No, he said, I'll remember it. The door shut behind her, and with it, 7 years of loyalty vanished like smoke. He stood there for a moment, feeling the weight lift. Then he walked to his desk, opened his laptop, and began typing a new project proposal. Business didn't stop for heartbreak, and neither would he. But deep down, he wasn't finished yet. Because the next step in his plan wasn't about letting her go. It was about making sure she understood exactly what she'd lost. And by the time he was done, Harper wouldn't just miss him. She'd remember him every time she looked at the man she'd chosen instead. 2 weeks passed. The silence in the house no longer felt heavy. It felt clean. Logan Pierce had replaced every trace of Harper's presence. New curtains, new bed sheets, even the coffee mug she always used. The only thing he hadn't touched was the wedding photo on the hallway wall. He kept it there for one reason, to remind himself what blindness looked like. Everyone at his company knew Harper was gone, but no one dared to ask why. Logan worked harder than ever, pouring himself into contracts and site visits. Still, at night, when the house went quiet, his mind wandered to the messages she had sent Dylan. The soft tone, the emojis, the can't wait to see you again. He used to think betrayal would destroy him. Instead, it sharpened him. One Thursday afternoon, Logan got a call from an unfamiliar number. When he answered, a smug male voice came through the line. "Logan Pierce? This is Dylan Cooper. I think we should talk." Logan's jaw flexed, but his voice remained calm. "About what?" "You know what about," Dylan said, his tone laced with arrogance. "Look, I get it, it hurts. But Harper's with me now. You gotta move on." Logan leaned back in his chair, the faint hum of the office behind him. "Move on," he repeated softly. "You should probably worry about keeping your job first." "What do you mean?" Dylan asked sharply. Logan smiled faintly. "You work for one of my biggest clients, remember? They outsource their renovation contracts through my company. You really think I don't know every name that crosses their payroll?" There was silence on the other end, then a nervous scoff. "You wouldn't." "I already did," Logan cut in. "Enjoy your final paycheck, Dylan." He ended the call before the man could respond. For the first time since everything fell apart, Logan felt something that almost resembled satisfaction. But this was only the beginning. The following Monday, Logan attended a charity gala downtown, a high-profile event filled with clients, executives, and city officials. He hadn't planned to go originally, but fate had a twisted sense of humor. Because when he stepped in the grand ballroom, dressed in a sharp black suit, the first person he saw was Harper, standing beside Dylan, wearing the same red dress she'd once worn for Logan's company anniversary dinner. Her smile faltered the instant their eyes met. Logan didn't flinch. He walked past her with the calm of a man who had already buried the past. Every movement he made was deliberate, confident, a living reminder of what she had thrown away. Throughout the evening, people gravitated toward him, shaking hands, praising his work, offering future deals. Harper watched from across the room as he spoke with Lena Carter, a well-known real estate investor, beautiful and poised. Lena laughed at something he said, lightly touching his arm. The gesture was small, but Harper's reaction was not. Her chest tightened, jealousy bubbling beneath her carefully painted smile. Dylan leaned in to whisper something, but she barely heard him. Her eyes were locked on Logan, the man she once believed she could always crawl back to. Later that night, when Logan stepped outside to make a phone call, Harper followed. The cool evening air brushed against her bare shoulders as she called softly, "Logan, wait." He stopped, turned slowly. "You shouldn't be here," he said flatly. "I had to talk to you," she pleaded, stepping closer. "Please, just for a minute." He sighed. "You made your choice." Her voice cracked. "I know, and it was the worst mistake of my life. Dylan, he's not who I thought he was. He's controlling, selfish, and, God, he doesn't even have a job anymore. He blames me for everything. I thought you were cold before, but now I see you were just strong." Logan studied her face, the desperation, the regret. He had imagined this moment 100 times, but now that it was here, he felt nothing. "I warned you," he said quietly. "You can't build happiness on a lie. It collapses eventually." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm sorry. I'd do anything to fix what I broke." He looked at her for a long time, his expression unreadable. Then he said something that made her heart drop. "Harper, I don't hate you," he said softly. "You're just a lesson I had to learn." Her lips parted, but no words came. He continued, his tone steady but cold. "And don't worry, I won't tell anyone what really happened. You've already punished yourself enough." Then he turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the glow of the streetlight, mascara streaking down her cheeks as her perfect world shattered around her. A month later, Logan's company announced a major expansion. His business had grown by 30%, and investors were lining up. Lena Carter, the same woman from the gala, had become his business partner. Rumors spread quickly, of course, and Harper heard everyone. She sent him a message that night. "I'm proud of you. You deserve all of it." He read it once, smiled faintly, and deleted it without replying. There was no anger left in him, just peace, the kind that comes when you finally realize some people aren't meant to walk beside you. They're meant to remind you where not to go again. That night, Logan stood by the window of his new apartment overlooking the city skyline. The reflection of lights shimmered across the glass as he whispered to himself, "You win by letting go." Down below, the world moved on. Cars, people, life. And so did he. But for Harper, every billboard bearing the name Pierce and Company was a quiet, unending echo of the man who stopped chasing and started leading. Months passed. Winter melted into spring, and the sharp edges of Logan's pain softened into something else: acceptance. He no longer woke up with that heavy ache in his chest, or checked his phone expecting another lie. His mornings began with the smell of fresh coffee. His evenings ended with quiet music and peace instead of tension. He'd rebuilt himself, piece by piece, not as a husband trying to hold together something broken, but as a man who'd learned that strength wasn't about staying. It was about knowing when to walk away. One Saturday, Logan pulled up to a local charity site, a small housing project for single mothers and struggling families. His company was sponsoring the construction. As he walked through the half-finished homes, greeting volunteers, one of them smiled at him. Lena Carter, his new business partner and friend. She was hardworking, kind, grounded. They shared jokes, late meetings, and unspoken understanding. "Didn't think I'd see the boss actually carrying lumber," she teased. He smirked. "Well, someone's got to prove I'm not just good with paperwork." She laughed, and for the first time in years, it didn't sting when another woman's laughter filled his world. It felt right. As they worked, the conversation turned personal. "You ever regret it?" Lena asked softly. The way things ended. Logan paused, wiping his hands on his jeans. "No," he said finally. "I regret not seeing it sooner. But walking away? No, that was freedom." She smiled faintly, her gaze warm. Sometimes losing someone clears space for what was meant to find you. He looked at her then, really looked, and something inside him stirred, not from pain but from possibility. That evening, after everyone left the site, Logan drove to a quiet overlook that had always been his thinking spot. The city lights flickered below like stars trapped in motion. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through old messages from Harper that he'd never deleted, not out of nostalgia, but to remind himself of the man he used to be. Then, with one final breath, he hit delete all. It wasn't anger. It was closure. At that same hour, miles away, Harper sat in a tiny apartment with boxes still unpacked. Dylan was long gone, having left her the same way she once left Logan, without a goodbye. She stared at her phone, Logan's name grayed out, messages gone. For the first time, she understood what true silence felt like. The man she once dismissed as too predictable had become someone unshakable, respected, successful, untouchable. A week later, Logan was invited to speak at a business conference about resilience and rebuilding after loss. Standing under the stage lights, microphone in hand, he looked out at the sea of faces and said, "Pain can break you, or can build you. What matters is what you do while you're standing in the ruins. Some people run, some people hide, but the strongest ones, they rebuild." The crowd erupted in applause. Lena smiled from the front row, and in that moment, Logan felt something he hadn't felt in years: pride. Not for what he had built in business, but for what he had rebuilt within himself. That night, as he walked out of the venue, rain began to fall softly. He stood beneath it for a moment, letting the drops run down his face, feeling alive, grounded, and new. He wasn't chasing revenge anymore. He'd already won. Because the truest form of revenge wasn't destruction, it was evolution. And Logan Pierce had evolved into everything she once claimed he couldn't be. A man who no longer needed her apology, her validation, or her memory. He drove home in silence, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Tomorrow, he'd wake up early, pour his coffee, and step into another day that belonged entirely to him. The past was done. The lesson was learned. And this time, he wasn't surviving. He was free,